That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about Steppenwolf, the 15th film directed by Adilkhan Yerzhanov, which premiered at the 2024 Rotterdam Film Festival. We are reviewing this out of its playdate at the Fantastic Film Festival. Notably, its two lead performers shared an award for Best Performance at the Fantasia Film Festival this summer.
15 films.
Yeah, and he's quite young. I've seen at least 5 previous films, including Yellow Cat, The Gentle Indifference of the World, The Plague at the Karatas Village, Goliath, and The Assault.
What is Steppenwolf about? Tamara searches for her missing son in a violent town. She hires a morally questionable ex-detective to find him. His methods are cruel, but she is determined to find her son whatever the cost. That makes it sound more sensible than it is. What's your pull quote?
A moody, brutal journey through a violent political dystopia, Yerzhanov's beautifully shot nightmare is both transfixing and repellent.
Agreed. Mine, sadistic, bleak, tedious, yet darkly humorous, Steppenwolf is difficult to categorize and might only satisfy a very specific audience. I did find this effective. Mm-hmm. And it is beautifully shot.
Yeah.
There's a lot to talk about. But I think if people are expecting a standard horror gore, especially thinking about the festivals it came out of, you might be a little, not disappointed, but...
I think Rotterdam is a good premiere slot. But yeah, Fantasia and Fantastic Fest, which are genre-oriented, it certainly feels more tangential.
Yeah, and this story, and I think the overall, the finished product is much more thoughtful than your standard, revenge horror film.
Yerzhanov, if you were going to say there was a new wave out of Kazakhstan, Yerzhanov would be kind of the man of the hour with his prolific output. There are a few others like Sergei Dvortsevoy, who works much less frequently. But his films often make callbacks to notable pieces of literature, like Camus, for instance, for Gentle Indifference of the World. But this, as its title suggests, and an opening quote, is referencing Hermann Hesse's 1927 novel, Steppenwolf.
Can you explain? You've read that novel. Can you give a brief...
I've read that. It's a difficult, complex novel that was also banned in a lot of places for its kind of depictions of sexuality and heavy drug use. But that also was the reason we have a band named Steppenwolf. There's a Boney M song that's about that book, or about Steppenwolf. But it's, in short, about a man having an existential crisis between the sacred and profane natures of humanity, like the high and low point, the low point being the wolf of the steppes. And it's also about suicidal ideations, because this man is on this journey and he's afraid to go home because if he goes home to himself, he'll probably kill himself. But along the way, he meets a woman who kind of reawakens his yearning for stimulus. The quote that is used from the book is interesting at the beginning of the film. How could I fail to be a lone wolf and an uncouth hermit, as I did not share one of its aims nor understand one of its pleasures? Which to me is about realizing that you can't be one of the other things if you're not taking part in what is the nature of that. So the nature of the wolf, what it's doing to survive or what it's doing to please itself. And arguably, I think that fits perfectly for the two central characters in this film.
The story is pretty simple. So this ex-detective, the character's name is Brajyuk.
He says his name once and then says, "Don't call me that, it's a nickname. Don't call me anything."
Played by?
Berik Aytzhanov, who is in Goliath from this director previously.
He reminded me of the actor in The Boys. Do you know what I'm talking about?
The series?
Yes.
Carl Urban?
Yes. He looks like him to me. Mm-hmm. But the film... So we see that... I was going to say Carl Urban. Brajyuk is in this It's set in Kazakhstan.
Kind of, well, in an unnamed town where it seems like a full-on UN crisis is happening.
And the vibe is like Mad Max in the tundra, kind of.
Yes, and I think The Searchers, the John Wayne film, specifically with the opening shot where Tamara, the lead woman that we open with and close with, that's specific to The Searchers, that shot through the doorway.
So that's the environment. Brajyuk is working in this like prison, but it's like a makeshift type of thing. And he's there as like an interrogator. So that's what he's doing at the moment.
Torturing, basically.
But the opening is this woman, Tamara, played by...
Anna Starchenko, and this is only her second film.
She's doing some weird mumbling that was giving me very like ASMR vibes. She seems a little crazy. Mm-hmm. But their two worlds combine because we're seeing like the happenings in the prison. And then she just walks through the front door talking about, my son's missing. His name is Timko. Help me.
And she's holding this Rubik's Cube that she found in the ground.
She's also very affected. She kind of mumbles like this. Can you help me with Timko? It was driving me crazy. Yes. It's very effective. And the like prison guard is sort of like, okay, bitch, come in, but like get out the way, because he sees that this huge truck filled with bandits breaks into the prison and damn near kills everyone, mm-hmm. except Tamara and Brajyuk. Mm-hmm. Brajyk's able to convince Tamara to help him by promising he'll help her, because he's locked in like a cell, so he needs her help getting keys. She agrees to help him in the best way she can to communicate by making him say that he'll help her find her son. So they both leave, but then the bad guys capture Brajyuk. Mm-hmm. No one's concerned about Tamara. This lady is in the middle of several like gunfires and no one's bothering her. But Brajyuk convinces the bad guys to not kill him because that lady over there says she'll pay us $5,000 to help find her son. And so the two bad guys who are remaining agree. And she tells a story about how her son was like swinging on a swing set. So they have an idea of where he might have been. They say, let's go over there. They have surveillance video. They get there, see the video and realize, oh, like this pimp we know took your son. But the son ran to this man like it's his dad. So, and that pimp probably went to go see this guy Taha, who he works for. Mm-hmm. And now Brajyk's intrigued because that man Taha is responsible for executing Brajyk's family. Mm-hmm. So now he has an interest in finding Taha. And I guess a side effect would be that he could probably help Tamara find her son, since they both need to go to the same place. So the bulk of this film is them kind of slowly making their way to find Taha. And throughout that very slow process, just killing everybody. Well, not they, Brajyuk killing everyone he sees.
Yeah, point blank, just dispatching people left and right.
But everything culminates in them, Brajyuk coming up with a plan saying that this cavalcade's coming and it will certainly have Taha in it.
And we learn that Taha has been abducting children and then selling their organs.
So they stop this caravan, have a big shootout. One of the vehicles, like it's like a trailer. It's not very clear, but it would seem that one of the trailers is housing Taha and some kids. But we never figure out if Timko, her son, like we don't verify that he's in there, but we do see that everyone in that trailer is lit on fire.
Yeah, we hear their screams as they're dying.
Then we see Brajyuk and Tamara sort of face off like an old Western. Mm-hmm. He gives her a gun. It's important to know that earlier she said, promise me that when we find my son, you'll kill me. But then he gives her the gun and then she starts shooting. And it seems like maybe she did shoot him because he's bleeding from his head. And then the film ends, but then the final scene that's running through the credits, we see Tamara walking with a little boy to like a shed.
Where she was in the beginning, where she hung a portrait of Jesus on the cross.
So maybe her son was there and she was able to save him before?
I would assume yes, because her plan. I think her plan was that she wanted to be killed because the assumption was that Timka was dead, and therefore she has nothing to live for. Her hope is dead, and the only reason he's still living is for vengeance. And once he satisfies that, he has no reason to live anymore.
I think that's the best explanation for what the film is about.
Maybe.
In my mind. But my first note is this movie should have been called Shooting and Slapping, because that's all that's happening. That literally is just people shooting people like close range, point blank, and then Brajyuk keeps slapping Tamara. And I don't advocate violence, but I can see why he kept slapping her. She is so frustrating because she's mumbling everything.
She's close to being catatonic almost, and it is frustrating. And he's just slapping her.
You know what it reminded me of? Dustin Hoffman and Dick Tracy when they're interrogating him with the heat lamp. And
mumbles.
Oh my God, I was so frustrated. But I kind of because it was at the halfway point that you told me the two of them shared a Best Acting award. Mm-hmm. And then I thought they do make quite the duo. And while Tamara drove me crazy, I think the actor did a really good job in playing that character.
Oh, she seems affected.
Yeah. And I did like the actor playing Brajyuk. He had some swag to him.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And he has that duality, too, because he's constantly kind of laughing and mirthful, but then doing the most reprehensible things. And on top of that, mimicking people begging for their lives. That's also a bit chilling.
So sadistic, I think the fact that he seems to enjoy just killing people. Bleak, the setting of the film. Tedious. It's 100 minutes and not a lot happens. There's a lot of sort of sitting around and listening to this lady mumble.
But it looks fantastic. The cinematography, Yerzhanov has worked with the cinematographer before in both Yellow Cat and The Owners for sure, maybe more. Urbanek Tyreliev. I mean, it is a beautifully shot film, and it has this fantastic electro synth score that reminds you of like Tangerine Dream stuff from the 80s. Galmijan Moldanazar, is the composer. It's unexpected.
I agree, it's beautifully shot. All of it, but particularly the ending when night falls, because it seems like the movie takes place over the course of a day and night. Mm-hmm. But when we get to the nighttime and then they being Brajyuk alone, with Tamara just standing there looking crazy, he assaults the caravan, and then we see some of the cars on fire, and the way it's shot, like the way it's all framed, the colors, it was beautiful, which is strange because what's happening is horrific, but it was beautiful. And I agree, the score is a nice compliment.
A sweet dream or a beautiful nightmare.
I did think, though, when that truckload of bad guys breaks into the prison, we have no idea what they're doing.
Yes.
But I wrote down, what is the verb of being like a mercenary? Like mercenarying?
A merc.
Oh, a merc. They're not very good at merking.
They're merking.
Yeah, they weren't very good at merking because those guys seem kind of nervous, which I think...
They're screaming.
Well, I think it's deliberate, which makes me think that they had valid. Killing a bunch of people is not valid, but like they had a reason why they were trying to get into this prison. And so normally I would complain about this, but in this movie, I kind of found it intriguing that we don't really know much about anything. Well, this film's a really good example of how to do that effectively.
Well, because if you remove specific agendas for why people are engaged in warfare, it really just is that.
Right.
Like people slaughtering one another. And if you remove those excuses, doesn't it just seem insane that as humans we continually do that?
I think a symbolic moment is in the beginning when the bad guys have killed all the prison employees and we have Brajyuk on his knees about to be executed. And he's trying to convince them not to, but also doing what you said, kind of like mocking the people they've already killed. And while he's doing this, the person who has the gun to his head tries shooting him like 4 times. But the gun, this like assault rifle keeps jamming. And I thought that was interesting if we think about how maybe those were opportunities for him to kind of stop this nonsense here, like symbolically. But then life is giving him chances to F up more, I guess. I don't know.
Well, he does have his own agenda. Like, there's something driving him, and that is the revenge for what was taken away from him.
Right. Then we see him go to, like, his brother's place.
Yes.
That was an odd scene.
Who's sitting there eating what looks like a big stew, and he's like, yeah, Mom died a couple of months ago.
And Brajyuk is mad. Like, why didn't you tell me? And then just shoots his brother and kills him.
If you took a shot for every person that's murdered, you die of alcohol poisoning. But even if you just took a shot for every person that he kills, like point blank, like he toys with and then shoots point blank, just like his brother, you would also be just hammered.
But it's funny because other movies, I mean, you think about like a John Wick or or what did we just watch? The Indian film where they're on the train. Kill. I mean, those have more kills. But I think because this one feels so stark and bleak, and then they are so, like they're not flashy kills. It's just like, bam. I was more affected by this film.
Well, because there's the intimacy when you're that close to somebody that you're killing, I think, which makes it seem more troubling, rather than all these nameless faces in some action franchise film.
Before the caravan with like the big boss Taha shows up, Brajyuk and Tamara find some crates that are containing the body parts that are allegedly from these kids, or supposedly from these kids. And then we see Brajyuk trying to make a diagram or a plan of how they're going to attack
the convoy.
And he's using like bone fragments. They're like vertebrae.
They look like vertebrae, yeah.
With bullets. And I thought that was a great visual. I mean, it's dark, but I thought that was a great visual.
He's pulling out all these organs and bags out of a cooler, and she's like, is that Timka? Well...
I mean, part of my pull quote is darkly humorous. I mean, it is like that uncomfortable laughter of like, what am I watching? Especially like him slapping her. Because he just keeps bopping her in the mouth. Like, oh my God. Then there's also, he has like this little spinner, like topper, what do you call it? Like a dreidel type thing?
It's not a dreidel. I think it's just a top. But
I don't know how to refer to that. A spinning top. And he uses that with his brother at first, saying like, oh, when it stops, we're going to like draw. And that's how he kills his brother. And then he does it again with...
Which kind of reminded me of Inception, now that you say it.
Oh, sure.
With the spinning top. But this is not that complex narratively as that film is.
Oh, we didn't talk about... So at a point, because Tamara's doing some interesting things, besides her damn mumbling, she's also doing what looks like a prayer, and she keeps saying little calves in the language she's speaking. And then she's also doing something where she's going like this. And then we see that Brajyuk starts doing it also. What did you think that meant?
I think they start rubbing off on each other because as their paths have intersected and their reasons for living or surviving have changed. I think at that point where we really notice that, because he's starting to mimic her and she's starting to become more brutal.
What else would you like to say?
Because that's when she starts hitting that one shot. That one man that shot asking for the keys, she's mimicking his behavior by doing that.
Yeah.
I was interested in seeing this because I liked several of this director's previous films, and he works in 12 years. He's done like 15 films. That's like Fassbinder level of filmmaking. And even though I haven't loved all of them, it's there's a level of craftsmanship that I think is quite impressive. So yeah, if you haven't seen, and I've read Hesse's novel, but I've never seen, there's a 1974 film adaptation starring Max von Sydow, which has some great poster art, which I sent you. But I think the tagline for that film is "For Madmen Only," and I think that also applies. It also applies to this film.
I think if someone's just looking for like an action-packed, gore-filled revenge film, they might be disappointed. This is definitely more cerebral.
For sure, and troubling, and I don't think you'll leave it feeling like it's not cathartic or comforting in any way.
No. What would you give Steppenwolf?
3.5.
I thought it was very good. I would give it 3.5 out of 5. Join us on Patreon and listen to our podcast. Bye.